Kindly keep your microphone mute. In the meantime, I would like to recognize Cornelia Simwe, who has joined us, Regina, who has also joined us. Regina, please confirm your organization, which organization you're coming from, because we are taking note. We are also joined by Isaac from UNIPA. The executive director of UNIPA is here with us. Yes, we are glad to welcome you all. We are also joined by Mima from SRHR. Mima, you're welcome. So with this recap, allow me to take us to the next session. And with this, I'm inviting someone who is very special and very passionate about civil society, about the agency of civil society, but also about working together, whether it's in alliance or network building. So she has a lot of experience, and as the steering committee have been working with her to shape up the governance structure and charter for the CSO League. So she will be sharing with us the highlights of what we have agreed upon as the steering team, but we are free to make your input thereafter during the plenary discussion, because after this we will be able to adopt it as our working document and start using it with immediate effect. We are still getting some feedback. I request the technical team to work on it and check if there's someone who is not muted. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, please join me to welcome Solome to share with us about the governance charter that we have. Solome, you're welcome.
Thank you very much. I hope you can hear me. But we are struggling with feedback. I think it's coming from the source where you situated. So maybe you can help us sort that out. Okay, is that better?
Yeah. Yes, we can now hear you.
So I'm happy that you're finally here, and thank you very much, especially for having me into this. Just like you indicate, I am so passionate about co-creating, about gathering our communities together, about creating alternatives, but also about letting the cracks of civil society and their power and capacity to organize differently, but also to shift things, especially the people. Okay. So I did not have much time because I was asked to summarize the governance charter for the C50 League Uganda chapter, which is over 60 pages in a few minutes. So I'll try to summarize that. This is your document. It has the details, but my presentation is basically a summary. So for purposes of me presenting appropriately and for you seeing what it is, I'll mute my video, but then I'll put on the presentation and then I'll put back my video when you get to ask questions or comments or reflections. So here we are. I hope you can see. Can we see? Can you see the slides? Yes. Okay. Thank you very much. So I'm happy that you're here. Finally, I'm happy that you appreciate the time. I'm happy as a consultant that I'm presenting my work. You know, when you do consulting, it's a highlight that your clients have given you the space to receive your work. And thank you very much, the steering committee, for shaping this governance charter, but also for steering the process. When you look at your journey, it means that a lot of work has happened in the last 2 months that has allowed you to get to this stage. So So what is the African League for SRHR? It was formed in 2000 in Johannesburg at a meeting of SRHR actors, where they got together and realized that while they're all doing a lot of great work out there, still there is the SRHR outcomes that were registered at the national level because of the link between ratification and investigation. That while many African countries, Uganda is actually one of the countries that is very good regarding ratification of international and regional and sub-regional instruments, but investigation is a challenge. So one of the things that was agreed was to create a league on SRHR in Africa, which league will have a continental secretariat, which is based at IPP and Arrow. And then at the national level, each country forms a national league. Ghana formed a national league and has supported us a lot. We've done a lot of learning from them for us to be able to pick ourselves up and keep moving. And there was a thing that we needed to remind together as a continent for us to be able to scale up SRHR advocacy by ensuring that there is more effective investigation, by also us monitoring SRHR commitments, because remember, it's what they call rights holders and duty bearers. At one point in time, you can't sit back as civil society. You can't sit back as the state. There's a level where we're always checking each other. We all have obligations to the citizenry out there. And then also the citizenry was around enhancing decision making, decision makers accountability, to domesticate global contributions and what is SRHR. And the third area was around periodic policy mapping exercises that are seeing where we are. And for that, those of us that have been part of this training for the last 2 weeks, remember this is something that has come through. Even in the name of the speeches, we're implored upon to make sure that we are continuously mapping at one point a week. On Monday, on Tuesday, the facilitators also implored upon us to kind of have a mapping, because we need to be checking all the time how far we are regarding the investigation. So after we came back from Johannesburg, there was a series of meetings, including a meeting in Nairobi, including so many emails, including so many chats. Finally, Uganda got the black certificate in Uganda. And you cannot remember, you were invited to a meeting that happened on the 14th of May. The conversation there was to say, you know what, we need to get ourselves together. There was a mapping of who are the key stakeholders that really are working around this SRHR in Uganda, especially domestication. And at that meeting, the 7 founding members of the league were those organizations: SRHR Alliance, Uganda Family Planning Consortium, PPDRO, UNICA, SAMASHA, and RHU. But also at that meeting, there were so many people. You elected a steering committee. Which steering committee we're going to get to later, which you have to formally approve, because from this governance charter that you've created, you must formally adopt your steering committee through a formal process that is documented in minutes of a general assembly, so that you're in line with good corporate governance. So that is your journey. Very exciting. It has highs and lows, bumps and hills. A lot has happened. Summarize as that. And we wish to congratulate all of you, because between May this year to July this year, today, which is 29th of July, you've done a lot. Amidst all the challenges, even amidst the lockdown and uncertainty of whether there will be an opening or lockdown, but a lot has happened. So you need to congratulate yourself as the members, you need to congratulate yourselves as the steering committee, you need to congratulate the coordination team, you need to congratulate the leadership of the steering committee, Charles and Dorothy, as well as the hosting secretariat RHU, for really having pulled through to make sure that within 3 months, actually 2 months, you have your charter up and running, so that you can utilize the next half of the year to make sure that the charter starts hitting the ground running. So a number of things were done, which you can see there, including building your capacities for the last 2 days, and then today we're having a general assembly, and you're adopting your charter, as well as constituting the remaining organs of the league, which is the thematic working groups. So you have a very exciting vision In other words, you want to track documentation, ensure implementation, but then also the strategies that you would like to use are integrated in your mission statement. We took it upon ourselves with the steering committee to help us develop goals and objectives because we wanted to be clear. This is what we stand for. Our goal is sharp. That is the outcome, the overall result. Regional and global SRHR instruments and commitments effectively domesticated in Uganda. And then as an institution, as a league, these are your 6 objectives. And to build awareness on Uganda's domestication of key SRHR instruments, protocols and commitments at the national and subnational levels. To strengthen capacities of CSOs in Uganda to undertake advocacy and effective tracking on the domestication of these SRHR standards. So objective 2 is really around capacity strengthening, and that is where we had the last 3 days of the capacity building process. Objective 3 is building a pool of civil society actors, actively engaging key government entities and holding them accountable for the domestication and timely reporting of key global and regional SRHR standards. Objective 3 is mainly around building a movement of like-minded actors that can be able to engage state actors and ensure that we are investigating and reporting timely on these standards. And then objective 4 is expanding a pool of knowledge, resources on the status of Uganda's domestication of SRHR treaty standards and instruments. So objective 4 is around becoming the powerhouse, building resources, evidence generation, because we need that. And what some of the things we talked about mapping all the time and seeing where we are falls under that. Objective 5 is garnering collective engagement of SRHR within regional and global human rights mechanisms. And objective 5 is about projecting the C50 Uganda chapter to engage with the regional and global human rights mechanisms, to engage, for instance, with UPR, to engage with African Commission, to engage with those spaces. And then objective 6 is to build and sustain a strong, vibrant, and sustainable CSO League in Uganda, and we aspire to be the strongest CSO League on the continent. So number 6 is a main one, is about building ourselves, which we have to, because we can't deliver on 1 to 5 without us intentionally strengthening and building our own capacities and having a strong institutional base as a coalition. So after we do all that, we're going to get 6 key outcomes. The first one is about improved knowledge and advocacy on domestication. The second one is around strengthening capacities and agencies of us and civil society in Uganda to effectively track. The next one is about a critical mass created, nurtured, and sustained at national and subnational levels. When we say subnational levels, it means districts and lower levels. Because if you're to create a movement, it has to be beyond us, the Zoom and Google people, beyond the Kampala base, beyond the high heels and nice shoes, beyond the suits, people under the trees. That is where ultimate change can happen. That is where they can connect between what is happening, for instance, at the sub-county level, with what we discussed in Europe. And that is a huge dream that we have, that probably one day we'll be able to create that reform us. And the another outcome is data generation that gives you informed evidence and advocacy on tracking. And then the next outcome is strategically positioning and having meaningful engagement for the league within regional and international human rights mechanisms and spaces. And then lastly, around institutional development, the key outcome is a robust, vibrant, responsive and sustainable CSO league, undertaking positive actions towards Uganda's representation of regional and international SRHR commitments. So one of the things that the consultant recommended is that after you adopt your charter, you're going to take time to extract all these the goal, objectives, outcomes, and go and finalize your strategy document, because that's where you break it down into specifically what you want to do to be able to achieve this. So we have exciting principles and values. These ones we took a lot of time debating and felt that these are the ones that apply to the coalition. First of all, one of the key values is being accountable, transparent, and open. Why? Because the league is demanding accountability elsewhere, so we also must espouse it. And then the second one is race-based, because that's actually one of the key glue that we are working around SRHR, but also pursuing rights as one of the key components. The other values that we espouse is partnership, because we believe I am. Another one is about inclusiveness and respect for diversity and gender justice. Why? Because SRHR is broad, but also within coalitions and alliances, often some people may fall off the cracks, or they fall through the cracks, or they are left while the nation is moving. So we believe in inclusiveness, respecting the various diversities, even the diversities and the nuances within SRHR as a sector, as well as gender justice. And then we believe in delivery. We are results oriented, is a key value for us. And then collective voice and mutual respectful communication. And then lastly, commitment and partnership of us all as the members and the friends and partners of the C50 League. So, somebody will keep asking, but surely, really, no way. There's so many things. We have so many coalitions, alliances. Even besides, probably this league wants to take our work as the NGO. No, it's not. Why do we need the league? The first one is that we need the league because the state has obligations that they must fulfill to safeguard, guarantee, and protect rights. The second is that the state has an obligation to domesticate regional and international treaties and standards on SRHR. The third one is that we have a duty as civil society to monitor that domestication and ensure that the laws, the policies, the programs, the political will, the environment, the budgets are in place. We also have another obligation to build a critical mass because this burden is huge. We can't say I'll work on it alone, and for me, I have my money from X, Y, Z, I can do this on my own. We need to build a mass because this is beyond us as individuals or as organizations. This is something that is collective, where even as civil society is one of our responsibilities for running so many people around our collective cause. So building a mass around domestication, because it's an area where they could all acknowledge, we all do a lot of work to push Uganda to ratify. However, domestication becomes extremely difficult because not many of us are engaging on it, or even connecting the work we are doing on a day-to-day basis to domestication, or even just understand the whole process, what happens when. And then you also have a duty to monitor allocation of financial and technical resources that actualize the domestication process. Why? Because we've seen an improvement in sign on to internationality. Sometimes we come back home and pass along, and then new conversations start emerging, which are actually contrary to what we committed at the international level. And then when it comes to SRHR, it's actually an area where resourcing is a challenge. It's an area where there's even stigmatization of SRHR issues within even the MDAs that are supposed to work on that. And then also we have an obligation to track, because remember, we have an obligation to even produce alternative for shadow reports. So we have an obligation to track, we have an obligation to engage, and also to be present and be part of the conversation in the regional and global human rights spaces. So these are your governance principles that is part that actually tie up your whole charter. The first one is that it's local initiative and ownership, and you're going to understand that when you look at the membership structure. The next one is really around creativity and innovation. Another one is being democratic, accountable, and transparent governance. That's why you're going to see there's so many structures that are created to allow participation and everybody to be heard. Another one is centralizing capacity enhancement and ongoing learning. Another one is around inclusiveness and diversity, equality and justice, collaboration and partnership, freedom of communication, transformative leadership, and openness to challenge as a tool of growth and learning. So your governance charter has a total of around 60 pages, but that is the summary of your charter. It has the first section, which is really a background that introduces the African CSOD, provides a background, and also some statistics here and there. And then the second section is around us as the CSOD or SRHR Uganda chapter. Who we are, what we do, what we stand for, your mandate, what makes you different, what is your purple card, what makes you stand out from everybody. And then section 3 is really around governance. What is the governance structure of the league? But also what are the roles of each of the organs of the league? Section 4 looks at the CSO League membership. Who qualifies to be a member? How are they recruited? How are they supported? What is the discipline and the removal or suspension procedure? Can we please manage the feedback? It's come back again. Then section 6.5 is about defining the roles and mandates. Actually, it's the hugest section of the charter. Why? Because at this point in time, we do not yet have the detailed policies or guidelines or bylaws for each of the organs. So everything is placed there to be expanded when you have those. And then number 6 is around financial management and sustainability. What do we look at? Where can we get money from? Who are we allowed to get money from? Who aren't we allowed? What does our financial process look like? But also, how does sustainability look like for us as a charter? And then number 7 is about what to do when you're changing the charter. For those of you who were with us on Monday, when we were being trained around when we were being trained by James about the ratification and international human rights law, it really tells you how you get in and how you get out. So this one tells us that if we have to make any changes, what do we do? How does that look like? And then, of course, number 8 talks about if we are winding up, if we dissolve, how will we manage that process, but also what as well. So we'll go to the first section, which is a summary of who can be a member of the CSO League. So, members of the CSO League can be national CSOs, regional CSOs and international CSOs, community-based organizations, and then groups or networks of people who are marginalized and excluded. You will notice that somebody like Solomon, the housewife, will not be a member of the CSO League, except if I come as a member representing an organization called Single Wives Association of Mbalwazville, and I'm doing SRHR work. So, breaking that down, for the national civil society organizations, these are alliances, consortiums, organizations, coalitions based in Uganda. You must be based in Uganda. And then regional and international CSOs based in Uganda as well. Community-based organizations and collectives based in the districts of Uganda, not the ones that are in Busia, across in Kenya. You must be based in Uganda. And then when we go to the CSOs based in Uganda that focus on vulnerable, excluded, and marginalized groups, here they've been broken down as women's organizations and networks, including women-led organizations, youth organizations and networks, including youth-led organizations, youth-serving organizations, and organizations for adolescent girls and young women. Why is that stress? Is that, like we all know, organizations that work for youth or youth organizations, many of these are male-dominated. Usually women, female youth and girls may not be included. So also that networks, ethnic minorities organizations and networks of people living with HIV, organizations and networks of persons with disabilities, including organizations of women and girls with disabilities, and the concerns that we had with youth-led also apply, because the disability rights movement is dominated majorly by persons with physical disabilities, but also persons with disabilities who identify as male. And then organizations and networks of sexual and gender minorities, including sex workers and LGBTIQ+ persons. Remember, all these are networks that still have to be, we are going to look at the criteria below, that are working on specific things. So how does somebody become a member? You fill and submit an application form. You sign this governance charter. You know, the application form asks all the information and also asks you to attach particular things that enable the steering to really look at and say, yes, this falls within the organizations that are mission and goals. You are going to perform as a league member in the aggregate and adhere to the code of conduct and the membership bylaws. The steering committee reviews the application and undertakes due diligence. Application may be accepted, rejected, or even deferred. If it is accepted, the new member is formally notified. The chair of the steering committee writes to you and copies in the steering committee and secretariat. And then a formal communication comes from the chair of the steering committee to the council to notify them that a new member has been accepted into the league. If any of you has reservations, please place them. If you do not have, within a specific time, then the new member is accepted. And then the new member is formally presented at the council at their next general assembly. Then, the steering committee uses the following to screen members. They check to see whether the organization is generally based in the country, works in Uganda, and has an active SRHR program. We are not going to allow people who are coming in and are working on exporting goats from my village. That is not within what we are working around SRHR. In other words, you must be working around SRHR and you are working in Uganda. You are legally registered, has a registered office, and this office is based in Uganda for at least 2 years. This league is not a learning space where somebody registered yesterday and tomorrow they want to be part of the league. We need to allow them time, 2 years, to be able to get on ground, because usually when organizations are new and young, they will do everything and anything before they deepen and get their real niche. Then the organization can demonstrate that it is an autonomous Ugandan NGO, entirely directed and managed by in Uganda. You know, there are some of these organizations where you look at them and they have only just half a Ugandan and all the others are people placed in the global north. So we really, because that's part of the local initiative that I talked about, one of our key principles and values, local initiative and ownership. And then the organization is defined as an NGO as per the national authorities or the laws. And then the organization policy-making bodies like the board committees, maybe the founders, etc., are not composed of bankrolled and or controlled by persons, organizations involved commercially in the sale, supply, and manufacture of contraceptive goods, because we are trying to manage conflict of interest. So who are the members? Hearty congratulations. You have a total of 19 members to date, and I know some of you after the General Assembly, between now and the General Assembly, you'll have an inbox to the chair and the steering to ask that you're sending your applications or you want to join, which is still open for them to look at that. So we have those members: Reproductive Health Uganda, Uganda Family Planning Consortium, Samasha Medical Foundation, Uganda Network of AIDS Service Organizations, UNASO, HEPS Uganda, SR Alliance in Uganda, Federation of Uganda Employers, Forum for Women in Democracy, Men Engage Uganda, Center for Health, Human Rights and Development, Uganda National NGO Forum, CSBAG, Gender-Based Violence Prevention Network, right here, right now, Reach a Hand Uganda, Uganda Key Populations Consortium, PPD Arrow, and then UNIPA. For now, those are the members that you have. And if there is any that has not been captured, please, I take the responsibility, but that is what I have for now. So, this is the procedure for you to apply. You've applied, and then the procedures are set out in the governance charter. After you're admitted, if you're in conformity with the aims and objectives, the steering committee has done a due diligence, you are accepted subject to endorsement by the CSO League Council at a General Assembly. The new member is inducted by the steering and the secretariat for them to know what the league is about, for them to get the charter, for them to get all that they need to get on board. And then if that marriage doesn't happen nicely, what happens? We need to talk about these things. You know, it is now still sweet. We are still in honeymoon. A member can be suspended from the league for failure to comply with the charter, or if found in breach of the membership code of conduct and bylaws. The suspension remains active unless it's revoked by the council and remains into force until the next General Assembly, when the matter is presented to the GA. A member may also be expelled from the league by a motion at the General Assembly for failure to comply with the CSO League Governance Charter. And the motion is in the charter is expounded is 2/3 of the members vote for the motion for you to be expelled. However, a member has a right to repeal, to be heard, and to present their defense. So that one can also be provided and can be heard at the General Assembly. Then, how do we sustain? One of the things that the steering debated at length was about membership fees. Of course, we acknowledge this is a COVID economy. Some of us are still waiting for that message from our Prime Minister. Others are frustrated we didn't get the portion, the beans, the radio, the TV, and now we are not sure we are going to get the mobile money. But the reality is that we need to fund our own movements. So the steering in their purview felt that they will set up a membership fee, which will be determined, and then also will be determined given the context where we are, given the environment, given the realities, but also they will determine when that will begin. What the steering committee decided is that the membership fee will not start immediately today. It will start at a later stage to allow us to settle in and grow for the first maybe 2 years, and then it can start after that. But then that will be paid annually. And like we all know, all membership organizations, one of the ways in which you can easily get your suspension ticked overnight is you failing to pay your membership fee. So that is something that applies in all government spaces where subscription and membership fees are paid. So